Hello and welcome to Oracle Machinimas. My name is George and I'm joined by Joe, and we are the creators of Leviticus, and today we're going to be talking about our experience of making a machinima in Halo 5 Guardians, and sort of not so much the voice acting and all that editing side. It's more to do with Halo 5 Guardians itself,
focusing
isn't it?
on the game.
Yeah, so we're going to cover Theatre, Forge, the game engine itself, and the sandbox, and we're going to have pros and cons for each. Now, initially it may sound as if there's a lot of cons to what we're saying. However, don't take that as face value. They are issues.
Exactly.
But
they're things that we think can be improved on, and we want theatre and machinima making to be as best as it can be. So it makes sense to really point out the issues rather than what's being done right.
Yeah, and I think overall our experience has been good.
Yeah, I mean, we finished it.
We managed to actually complete
the fact that we finished it shows that something's going right.
Yeah, and we didn't throw our toys out of the pram immediately. So I suppose we're right on that aspect. But kicking off with Theatre, Joe, what do you reckon?
So, Theatre...
Start with the positives.
You'll start with the positives.
Yeah.
Theatre, ever since Halo 3, has always had quite good functionality. It does what it needs to do. So, it still functions as theatre, and that's never really gone away. It's always been a lot of the smaller things that have gone. The one thing that's never changed, it's always been pretty intuitive, and the controls especially have remained pretty much consistent throughout all its iterations, which is nice. I mean, it's not like Forge where there's suddenly a massive new learning curve to not recording something incorrectly or moving in the wrong direction.
Yeah, it's fairly easy. I think the best thing with Theatre is it's always been very easy to pick up straight out of the box.
Exactly.
There's no mod cons to it as such. It is very simple. Although sometimes, as you'll hear just in a sec when we get onto it, that we would like a little bit more to it. But as the out of the box sort of thing, it does the job of really recording clips quite easily. So in that respect, I think that's as far as it
That is as far as we have for pros for Theatre mode, unfortunately. Ever since Halo Reach, it's sort of been going down in quality rather than improving, which is a shame. But hopefully we can make that change. You know?
Yeah. Well, it would be nice.
Yeah.
But we will see.
So
of course.
I guess now we'll start off with sort of listing off some of the issues that Theatre as it exists currently.
Yeah.
The issues that
some
exist.
of which are minor, some of which are quite big.
Glaring.
Yeah.
So we'll start before we even think about Theatre and operating that. We'll talk about launching a clip to record or whatever.
Yeah.
So in the past, sort of, I'm thinking Halo Reach sort of times, you could quite easily distinguish between different recorded sessions, because obviously as machinimators we have to get together body actors, and in order to make it easier on ourselves, scenes are usually recorded in separate games rather than as one long string of actions, because those games can be 50 minutes, 60 minutes at a time, and nobody wants to be cycling through that. So we tend to split it up. The only issue is there is no way to distinguish between two sessions. They have the same title, and it's very difficult to find the time when something was recorded. And even if you can find the time, if you're recording, say, 2 days later, I don't know what time I recorded X scene. What do you?
It only shows the date, doesn't it?
Precisely.
Which is no good to anyone, really. If you're recording on the same day, like Joe says, when you're splitting things up, because it does make things really difficult if you just do one massive thing.
So another issue that we find quite often when going around recording in Theatre is the Theatre camera itself is big. So we usually compare this to a Forge monitor, which can fit, and when I'm making scenes for the machinima, I usually use a Forge monitor to sort of get a sense of scale. How big is X? Can I fit through Y? However, the Theatre camera seems to have a collision size that is at least twice the size of a monitor, when it really has no reason to. And on top of this, the camera itself can be very sticky, as I call it. So putting it against a perpendicular surface, it will just refuse to slide along that like you would expect a Forge monitor to do. It'll just lock in place. I don't know if that's supposed to be a feature, but it's not a good feature if it is.
Yeah, it gets hooked very easily on anything, really. It can be the smallest object, and it could just make manoeuvrability so difficult. And if you want to do a panning shot within quite a tight area,
or a close-up can be difficult.
It makes
as well.
it damn near impossible, doesn't it? Because I remember one scene in particular where we had, I think it was Hawkins, and it was a real close-up shot in one of the, I think it might have been the last episode, and we basically couldn't get it within this gap, which really was big enough.
Yeah, there was no reason to not be able to fit it in the gap, but it just, wait a second.
Yeah, it's a big struggle. So that's one thing that I think really needs to be looked at is the size of the camera, because it doesn't really need to be any size, does it? It just, it could clip.
Yeah. So far we've talked about issues that didn't exist in rather features that have been removed from previous games, or changes that have been made from previous games that are worse. Now I'd like to talk about some things that I think could be added to theatre mode to improve the experience that perhaps weren't present in the past. So one of these things is the issue that's always existed with vertical movement and using the theatre camera. So as you probably know, when moving the theatre camera, it's much like a phaeton in Halo 5 from the Rex. So you use the bumpers to go up and down. Now that works in gameplay in vehicles, but it's not so good when you're trying to create a smooth movement. It can be very clunky, and you are stuck to one speed and only one speed, which obviously is quite limiting. It might be nice if perhaps there were alternate control schemes where you could plot vertical movement to one of the thumbsticks temporarily. That would be one way to fix it, I suppose.
Even a speed control in the options itself.
Exactly.
For the vertical movement.
That did used to exist in Halo Reach. There were controls onto how fast the theatre camera moved,
which is bizarre as to why.
Well, I imagine it's something that could be easily forgotten, really.
Yeah, I guess so. But there you go. Bring it back, please.
Yeah. So another issue that we find is zooming. So obviously, much like the past comment, zoom is limited to either fully in or fully out. There's no sort of in between. I've always thought it would be nice if we could have some sort of slider to get our own sort of choose how far in we can be zoomed, our own field of view for that. That would be pretty great.
Because the way you control it now is, obviously you have the two options, zoomed in and out, and then you have to use the distance of the camera itself, so either bring it back for a bit more of a wider shot but not fully zoomed in. So again, it's just very small additions that would make it,
that would improve the
multiple
experience
times better. And like you say, a slider would be fantastic for zoom, like it would be on like a normal camera.
And I mean, it's not like 343 haven't gone in and tried to make improvements and tried to support Machinima. Machinima controls as they are evidence of that. The only issue with Machinima controls is they're really, really niche and very specific into when you want to use them. They're great in like live lobbies of like 1 or 2 where you just need to get, say, a bit of dialogue or someone waggling their head. They're really, because you can do that super quick and it's fine for that. However, in a large lobby with like 12 body actors, I'm not going to want to have one guy just standing there operating a camera live where things can be recorded wrong or cameras can trip up or get stuck on things. I would much rather record the stunt or whatever, make sure the stunt gets recorded right, and then go back into theatre mode, post, and record it that way, because then nothing gets fucked up.
I mean, like you say, it is a good idea to bring it in, and obviously we've got the gun lowering and things like that, which has always been existent, but I don't think we ever used it at all. We did try and use it once, but we just thought it would just be easier to go into theatre. I mean, I quite like, on a personal level anyways, just to keep things separate, so you actually do the shot, do the recording, and then you go in and get your shots after. Therefore, it gives you the sort of time, I think, to pick
I know that some Machinima creators that prefer to use green screens and just layer upon layer of green screens. There's nothing wrong with that, of course. in some ways it's much better than the way we do it, but they do rely on the machinima controls a lot more. But still, as I said, that's still quite a niche feature, really.
I don't think it's something that should be removed, definitely not, but it's something that could be obviously improved upon. And it, like Joe said, it's very subjective depending on what sort of machinima style you're going for. If you want the green screens and lots of chroma effects and things like that, then it's perfect for that. But for more physical things like our machinimas, where we like to use the environments we have, I think generally the old way is the way for us.
Now it's time to talk about a couple of glaring issues that theatre mode has that are really awkward to sort of work around. The first one, and this has been an issue ever since Halo 4, is so usually with theatre we like to refer to it as a camera is focused on one person. Even when you're in free cam mode, the camera is always sort of technically focused on one Spartan. If that Spartan takes damage, or if certain HUD effects get applied to that Spartan, then they will also get applied to the theatre camera. Now, in some instances, you might want that, but in the vast majority of examples, that's something that, at the very least, needs to be an option to disable, I think.
It's so difficult, especially when you've got these effects on the screen, the damage effects in particular, when you've got a scene of 8 body actors doing an action scene when there's lots of gunfire, everyone's involved. You therefore have to get an extra person to just stand there and not take damage. And maybe this is another argument for the split screen that we'll come on to later, where you could actually just have another person on your local systems to counter that. But it shouldn't be in the third person.
Be an issue
it shouldn't
that we
be
have to work around.
Exactly. It makes things very, very difficult. And for example, the last scene, not the last scene, sorry,
the
action
act,
scene,
one of the
last episode,
one of the fights between the headhunters. This was a big issue because all 5 people were shooting at each other. Everyone was taking damage, and so we were constantly having to find
clean space.
Exactly.
Basically, yeah. So that was one thing that was a nightmare.
And then another thing that we kept running into a lot is issues with spawning. Now this is arguably an issue with Halo 5 game engine in all, but it affects theatre quite badly. If, say for example, so I'll start again actually. So Halo 5 likes to spawn people far away from other people, even if there are only the minimum number of spawn points placed. Like, say for example, I have 5 spawn points placed on a map, and I have 5 body actors. It is very common that Halo 5 will just refuse to spawn 1 or 2 of those body actors until those spawns have been cleared, which is not how it worked in Halo Reach, and is a pain to get around.
It affects, obviously, when you go into theatre, it changes the armour as well to some random variant.
If some players are spawned in late, they will, as George said, that armour will not be what we want.
Which of course wastes our time and wastes everyone else's time involved in the sessions. So.
And also creates more saved sessions that I have to try and work out whether they're dud or not. Good fun.
It's true.
But yeah, that's. I think that's all we have to say for theatre.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, from the general user using the theatre, it wouldn't have changed that much if you're just recording clips for your own sort of use or whatever. But for the ones like ourselves and other machinima directors out there that use it on a regular basis, you'll probably run into the similar things that we've noted here and probably agree to some of the statements and may even have your own suggestions. But those are sort of our main things with it. So I think we'll move on to the Forge now, which has obviously changed completely from previous iterations. I mean, everything really, like Halo 3, Halo 4 and Halo Reach, it's all very sort of similar Forge, but now it is completely different, and Joe is going to really go into this one.
On our notes that I'm reading here, I've just put in it's Halo 5's Forge smiley face, because that's all that really needs to be said about it. Everybody knows how good this iteration of Forge is. There's no argument I can make for wanting to go back from here. It's so good. Like the number of just being able to change skyboxes, changing the time of day. Like you can see it in the machinima. Like we're constantly making use of that, changing the time. Oh,
It
it's so
makes
good.
everything so much more dynamic. I mean, from myself, who hasn't never really used Forge because never really had the time to invest into it or the knowledge really to use it. It's changed massively, and it's so powerful. The amount of objects, the amount of possibilities that can be created now. It's almost like you've got your own development kit in a sandbox to make whatever you want.
Things like green screens and like
Yeah.
the spawnable effects, like those were mods back in Halo Reach, and now they're like fully supported objects that the developers have given you.
Yeah, and you've got the object welding enabling us
All
to
of this
fly
sort of
a
stuff.
a pelican. It's just incredible, and I cannot hats off massively to 343 on that front. And I really hope they continue to push it and develop it.
Honestly, the only improvement that I can ever like think of is just sort of some of the bugs that happened, sort of especially during the early patches. I'm thinking like January to March, there were some big issues that some Forge kind of had. So like I remember there was a big one that really messed us up, where if a map was saved without any spawn points, and then the patch came out, and those players were not able to spawn on those maps using the backup spawns that were built into the maps. And so that means that half the sets that I'd been working on basically were for naught, and we had to start again, and that was a big issue.
Yeah, that really held us back on development as well, didn't it? Which ultimately cost us into the future, but that's for another time. But yeah, Forge in general, fantastic, isn't it? I really cannot wait for the future iterations of Halo. Halo 6 Forge will be intriguing to see what they've done with that.
So.
But even if they haven't changed it too much in Halo 6, I'm fine with that, because what you've got now is...
It's just so good. I just can't think of a way to describe it.
It's like Hollywood, isn't it? You've got, it's like Pinewood Studios built into an Xbox.
It really is.
Which is fantastic. So there you go. A nice short positive vibe on Forge there. So the game engine itself, I think the first point for me anyway, and this is very, very divided within the Halo community.
Divisive.
Yeah. Well, it's divided as well, isn't it? Because some people like the graphics and the art style, and some people really hate it.
There's a lot of people I know that are really against the sort of look of the UNSC buildings and the look of the Forerunners and their architecture and the changes that have taken place.
For us though, we quite like it.
Yeah, we quite like it.
It's alright.
It looks pretty. It makes our machinimas look pretty, so we like it.
And I can see why people dislike it, because obviously there are some people that want Halo to remain like Halo, how you would imagine it from Halo 3 sort of era. But obviously the world has changed since then, and graphics is very, very important for developers now, isn't it? And you can see that in this game, and some people hate it, some people like it. We like it. That's where we stand with it, and it makes the machinimas, like Joe said, look really good.
Something else that the game engine changes that have been made that really works for us is being able to lower weapons over the internet. I cannot express how big of a deal that is for machinimators. Being able to get like an 8-man lobby together and have all of them lower their weapons and not be sticking giant rocket launchers in each other's faces during dialogue scenes. That is so nice.
Yeah.
That is so nice.
It's a great thing, and that's been in the game for ages now. And although the animation itself for actually lowering the weapon is a bit abrupt, it's fair to say, because in Halo Reach it's very smooth and it dropped it very naturally. However, to have this, in multiplayer is absolutely fantastic, and it does enable us to be a lot more extravagant and with the scenes we want.
It really does.
Without breaking that unrealistic thing where they're just pointing guns at each other and talking normally. It's quite odd, but
now it's back to the bad stuff. So one issue that we do get quite often during recording sessions, and I think this is a larger issue with customs in general, but we can get quite a few crashes and disconnects, which obviously is not good when you're trying to get like precision recorded stunts done. It's going to be very frustrating as well.
And also, I mean, we didn't run into it too much, but crashes can affect the theatre as well. That there are some issues that sometimes carry
corrupt
through
files, and that's never fun.
Yeah,
it's never fun telling your body actors that they have to reshoot an entire scene just because Halo 5 bugged.
So yeah, that's more of a server-side sort of thing, but again, needs to be improved, and I think everyone will agree with us on that one for sure.
Next, we got a real doozy here, ladies and gentlemen. Animations. So, I am well known among Oracle Machinimas for my love of the foot shot. However, I will be the first person to admit that sometimes feet and just lower bodies in Halo 5 can just look terrible.
Yeah, it's a real issue. I think it's because of the pace, and obviously Spartans or the developers don't think you're going to be walking around maps. You're going to be sprinting and
legs have always been a little bit weird.
Yeah,
when like using just sort of walking speeds, even way back in Halo 3 and Halo Reach. However, it's really bad in Halo 5. They can be very jerky and just sort of teleporty.
Yeah, you have to.
Obviously, doesn't look very good.
It becomes quite a skill to master the walking in Halo. You have to do it at this exact speed and pull off the trigger.
Any like slight change in player speed can completely destroy.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen it. I mean, there's some clips in our
sometimes it's just had to slip through because there's nothing else we could do.
And obviously changing in velocity from the speed of the players. Obviously, when you come to a stop, the body does a weird like shake, doesn't it? I mean, that doesn't irk me too much.
No, it's understandable why that happens because you can't predict when a player is going to stop moving.
Yeah, but it does look a bit odd. Distant animations as well, particularly on the sort of longer shots that we have.
I understand why it happens, but because obviously Halo 5 is running on the Xbox One, which is not the most powerful machine, it does have to cut corners, and one of the corners that has been cut is distant animations will run at a quarter or a third of the frame rate. Now that looks good when you're not zoomed in or anything, when you're not looking through a scope, but as soon as you sort of decrease the field of view, it becomes very glaring and very difficult to use for a machinima.
It does make some shots, like you
nigh
say,
on impossible.
Yeah. Even though without this they would look great. Yeah. But it's just because of the frame rate. It sometimes does make things really, really impossible, which is a shame. But will that be fixed? It's a hard one because it is obviously to do a lot with the power of the system.
It's a lot about the engine. And sort of another issue that sort of spouts straight from the engine and the capabilities of the Xbox One would be the removal of split screen. Now, I'm not really gonna try and start an argument about split screen should return to Halo because it's always been a Halo. Like times change, technology changes, like that happens. But I won't like deny the fact that because we haven't had a split screen in Halo 5, it has made like doing basic 2-man scenes just that more awkward.
Yeah, I can see why it's not there. Like Joe said, times move on, and nobody really plays locally anymore. I don't think.
Honestly, like aside from Machinima,
it's a very
would have
small
no reason to
number,
ourselves.
Isn't it?
Exactly.
But like Joe said, with the functionality of just doing 2-man scenes, it does make things a lot easier. Of course, we'd love to see it come back, because for those times that you are around a friend's house and you want to play Halo locally, then it's the perfect opportunity to do so. However, how often do those moments occur?
This is sort of a hard one because we both agree it would be nice if it came back, but I don't think either of us neither of us are really expecting it to come back.
No. And I don't think you should expect it either. Although maybe we're wrong. No. Maybe 343 will bring it back, but I'm not putting a bet on that for sure.
No. And then final sort of chapter of this, what is becoming more and more like a rant the longer we go. We'll talk about Halo 5 Sandbox just in general. So, obviously, like one of the first things that I think of when I think of the Halo 5 Sandbox is the rec variants. There are some crazy variants out there, and a lot of them are really useful for sort of niche effects.
Yeah.
One of the ones I can think of is the Dying Star, which is a variation of the light rifle which fires explosive rounds, and that's really useful just for like having a cheap explosion effect just to place.
Yeah, it's great that these are integrated into Forge and custom games, and enables us to really do something different with our machinimas. Instead of having the generic sort of vehicles and weapons, we've now got the opportunity to put Hannibal mantises, as you've seen, and all sorts of weird, wacky weapons, which really just brings a new sort of dimension to it, really, which is a great thing, and hopefully, that continues, and we'll see even more crazy variants as we continue on.
But another great thing is the inclusion of Spartan abilities. As divisive as they are from a machinima's perspective, I'm never going to say no to more good-looking animations.
Yeah. There are some cool ones, aren't there?
There are some good ones.
Like assassinations are pretty cool.
Assassinations are.
Although it's a bit of a lottery in how you get them, which we'll come on to in a sec. But yeah, there are some really nice things, and obviously like the mounting and general movement itself is pretty cool.
A lot of sort of the niche animations in general. I've been saying niche a lot, but this is the thing. You use the niche things a lot when you're doing machinima, but. A lot of those sort of specific animations have a very good level of quality to them, which is nice for us. I think we'll move on to the final, like the bad points.
The final push of bad things. Yeah.
Then you can get on with your lives.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest issues, I think, just in general, that we've had to deal with when getting body actors together is armor.
Yeah.
Halo 5 armor, like. It's bad enough that half of them just objectively do not look good.
Yeah.
Seeker helmet, I'm looking at you.
I'd say 75% of
the armor.
The armor is bad.
We just have to dismiss as we can't use this.
Yeah.
This looks horrible.
And the rest of it is usually good high level stuff.
Yeah.
Which obviously not everyone has. And like you say, the lottery of how you receive your armor pieces and assassinations and anything in Halo now is very difficult to be able to create bespoke characters, because you have to really limit yourself as to what your body actors have got.
It's sort of an internal meme that all of the headhunters aside from Jack Rain have recruit body armor, because we just can't risk the possibility that we get 5 body actors together and there's no combination of armors and people that will allow us to complete a scene. We just can't take that risk.
Yeah. It's happened so many times where we've had people on where we want a specific shot done with a specific armor set, and we can't do it on that occasion with those people. And I can imagine loads of people that have made Halo 5 machinimas with lots of people involved who have run into the similar issue, and I don't think this is something that's going to change at all. I think the rec system is probably going to be,
I kind of feel like at least parts of it are going to be here to stay for a while.
Hopefully not the armor, because that makes things difficult, but I wouldn't be surprised at all.
I also would like to point out, this isn't something we've written down, but it's just come to me now, is this isn't so much an issue for Machinima, but just browsing armors in general, because I play Halo 5 quite a bit. George doesn't play it as much, so he doesn't really experience it as much, but the way that armor is sorted in this game is mind-bogglingly dumb.
Yeah.
It is sorted by the time you unlocked it, which is
random.
I don't know when I unlocked my Anubis basic armor.
Yeah.
I have to just go through my 140 or whatever something iterations till I find it.
And I think every session we've had when we've recorded and people need to change their armor, everyone says, why can't I search the armor? Why can't I filter it out? It's an easy thing, but it really irks me as well. Even though I haven't got as much armor as you, it's still an issue.
Yeah.
It's such a simple thing to implement, but there you go. Not sure why.
And then just a final thing. This is more of just a bit of a plea from me, because this is an improvement I've wanted to have for custom game options for ages. But can we please be able to start with no guns and have actual animations for Spartans with no guns?
Yeah, I mean, we did have it in Reach.
We half had it in
to
Reach.
a degree, wasn't it?
They used the sword when animate, like standing stance, when you didn't have any weapons. However, if you crouched, there wasn't an animation for that.
It looked very odd.
He looked very.
So it would be nice to have just a Spartan on his own, no weapons.
Just honestly, just using the energy sword animations would be enough.
Yeah.
But just something really.
Yeah. Instead of having to have energy swords extinguished, although we have found a nice workaround.
There is a nice workaround for that,
which maybe we'll share some other time. But I think that's everything. In summary, this may have sounded negative, like we said at the beginning, but in general, making a machinima in Halo 5 has been not too dissimilar to the previous games. And I think the Forge really is a saving grace for this game because it's enabled us to do so many cool things, and I can't recommend enough to actually go out there and make a Halo machinima yourself. If you've done one in the past, try Halo 5. Of course, you're going to have to limit yourself in certain aspects of the armour and things like that. But that's sort of always been the case because you sort of work with what you've got, don't you?
Yeah.
And I think in general, Halo is a good engine for making a machinima again. I mean, we've done it. First time of trying it in a long time.
If we can do it, fucking what's your excuse?
Yeah. Give it a go, people. We would love to see more machinimas out there. And there are a few very good Halo 5 machinimas around.
There really are, yeah.
And, it's well worth giving it a go. It's not going to be like the golden eras of Halo machinima back in like the days of Reach, but you've got to work with what you've got, and you've got to enjoy, what you enjoy, I guess. And we enjoy what we do. And hopefully we can sort of pass on some inspiration to some other people, and hopefully this video has gave you an insight into what we've experienced, and I'm sure you've got your own thoughts, and it'd be interesting to hear what they are. So yeah,
let us know.
I think that's it, isn't it?
Yeah,
cool.
that is it.
All right, we'll see you soon.